this is a whole lot of work, but, I think it's worth it, man. It's worth it to see the impact that it makes on the industry and how positive of an impact it makes, and how to get people to think bigger about themselves, right? To get people to say, man, you know what? I truly want to, I was getting burned out, but now that fire's reignited. Like I got that passion back. I went by the name of Benito P.
Hola, what's up, everybody? Welcome and welcome back to the Reliable HVACR podcast. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed, like, comment, all that good stuff. If you guys are listening to this on the audio podcast, wherever you listen to it, please leave a review, get this show out to more people. And if you guys are watching and listening, I truly appreciate it. We would not be here without you. Now, on that point, the first sponsor of the podcast is VIZALOGIX. The future of remote support is here now. With VIZALOGIX TethrIT Now, you can actually see what the other person is seeing. If you've ever had an issue where you're trying to help somebody over the phone, whether it's a tech of yours or a customer, we try to avoid a lot of nuisance calls, right? And you're trying to explain something over the phone, they don't understand you, you end up having to go there in person, and it might be something like really dumb. With TethrIT Now, you can actually take these video calls, no matter if they're on iPhone, Android, whatever device, because you send a link that they click on and it starts or initiates a video call. And then with their technology, you're able to take pictures, draw on the screen, tell them exactly where to look for this or that, or point to things, circle things, and show them exactly what you're talking about, or you can actually see what they issues I have. So with that, you can actually guide your tech through a call, or you can actually tell the customer, let me see your breaker. Is it tripped? Is it off? Where's the power button? Is it plugged in? All these little things that you could avoid, because like a company like us, we're a little too busy. We could be doing other calls versus going to turn a breaker back on for somebody. That happens quite a bit often. So if you guys want to learn more on VIZALOGIX TethrIT Now, visit VIZALOGIX.com/HVAC. And the next sponsor is my favorite CRM, Jobber. Now with Jobber, we can do professional invoicing and quoting, at its base, but it has so many more features. You can schedule, which we use for reoccurring maintenance. So every 6 months, this thing will remind the customer. There's so much more you can do to message customers, set up reminders, set up scheduling. You can do more with checking in and out. You have price lists. You have tons and tons of features. If you guys need help organizing your business and helping it run smoother, it's been night and day for us. We came from paper invoices. I looked at or into other softwares, and there's a lot of complaints on other ones. And one of the big ones is affordability. Now with Jobber, they have really great prices. I promise you, they have something for anybody starting and needs just the basics. And then as you grow, you can get into these much bigger plans, and it grows with your business. So if you guys are interested in looking more professional, being more organized, it helps me get these invoices and billing out much quicker. In turn, we get paid quicker. So if you guys are interested, I can get you a free trial and discount if you go to getjobber.com/reliable HVACR. And another sponsor of the channel now is VETO. VETO Pro Pack, hands down, my favorite tool bags. Now, you guys have seen me rock a whole bunch of VETO bags, and I have nothing but good things to say. If you ever have any issues with them, they do have a 5-year warranty, but the quality is there. You're going to hear me say that a lot about VETO Pro Pack, is the quality, the different kinds of bags, and the thought process that goes into each of these bags. Now that I've seen how they design them, and the stuff they're thinking of putting out, all the new stuff that comes out, like they really want to cover every aspect or every need of any technician across many different skill trades. Whether you're a tech that carries a laptop, you need a lot of power tools or a lot of hand tools, like they have a bag for you. Just some of the best bags I've ever had, because I used to rip a lot of the other brands you see at the supply houses or that were there forever. And now VETO Pro Pack, second to none, never had an issue. Go check them out. Welcome to another show. Thank you guys for tuning in. And we have a good one for you today. We have Mr. HVAC Tactical. He goes by many other names, but I am not going to mention them all. You can, you'll see for yourself in a bit. But yeah, we got Mr. Ben Poole. He has his own clothing brand. He's turned that into something really great, a movement, like he says, which turned into an award show that he put together. So if you guys are, or if you guys don't know what that is, it's an award show to honor fellow techs, best install, best social media content, best podcast, best, hidden gem, guys that are new to the field or new to social media, I should say. And they get awards, they're nominated, they get awards. And then that's the night before the AHR Expo. So if you guys are familiar with the Expo, if you're not, it's a really cool place to go see manufacturers display tools and have competitions. I feel like they're improving that every year. So the HVAC Tactical Awards Show is Sunday night, the night before. And then you get to hang out, enjoy the show, enjoy a fun evening with fellow HVAC techs. A lot of them are the guys that you watch on Instagram, on YouTube, TikTok, everywhere. There's plumbers in there too. We talked about that. There is some plumbers that go there. Different trades have hung out there too. And then you get to, gear up for the AHR Expo, which is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. This year it's in Chicago, 2024. And then, clothing brand, award show, and then magazine. I have the first edition in there, which I will shamelessly plug that I am in that first edition magazine. So I'm pretty proud of that. It was an honor. And on that point, I don't know if he's watching. I don't know, not too many people watch this, right? And some others have let the cat out of the bag for themselves, but I am actually nominated for something. He doesn't tell you everything. He doesn't give you all the details. It's a surprise for the most part. So I got that heads up. Either way, I love to see people recognized. I mean, I don't care for myself, but I love seeing people recognized. And it's a cool thing because it's your peers. And they nominate you, or your peers nominate you. They have a committee, which is also your peers, other HVAC techs that declare winners and all that. And win or lose, I'm just super honored to be mentioned with them, or anybody that's up there. A lot of great guys. And I will say though, if I take it home, if I take it or anything, an award or anything, I'm doing it for the little guys. I'm a small fish in this crazy HVAC pond, right? But if I take anything home, it's for all the loyal viewers, all the guys that support, guys and girls that support, and it'll be for all of us. So like I said, I don't know if they're watching. I don't know. He let us know, so it's his fault. Anyway, we're going to talk about everything that Ben's been through. I've learned a lot about Ben because I did not know his whole story about being in and out of the trades. It's interesting stuff. So you guys need to listen to it for yourself. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, enjoy the show. Ben, how are you, man?
Man, I am unstoppable. How are you?
That's a great answer. I'm doing great, man. So I'm assuming, and I just want to make sure that you know that I appreciate you taking the time to come out here. I know you're busy around this time. I feel like you guys kind of planned the whole HVAC Tactical Award Show way in advance now, but I'm pretty sure it's very hectic once you get this close to it.
Yeah, I mean, we try to plan about 8 months out. Gives us about 8 months worth of planning, but you can plan all you want, right? There's always things that change. It's usually about the last 2 months that's the most intense. And then as you know, like AHR is just around the corner. We're like less than a month out. And this is like, it's go time, baby. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of moving
Yeah.
pieces to this show. And sometimes I'm like, dude, why do I do this to myself? What are we doing?
Yeah, I feel you too, man. I feel like I'm an even smaller fish in this pond, and I get overwhelmed with the stuff that we do because this whole social media movement, especially after like the COVID thing, really took off, and there's a whole different side of it now. And you are doing really good with the brand that you have, and we'll talk about that in a bit too. The HVAC Tactical brand. I know a lot of the viewers here are mostly familiar with like YouTube and the Spotify, wherever they listen to this. And sometimes they'll ask me about the stuff that I wear. I like to wear, the HVAC Tactical, the HVAC Crew, anybody that I can rep. I'll try and buy a lot of HVAC stuff. I know my girlfriend's like, man, you wear HVAC clothing all the time now, and I'm like, yeah, I like to wear that kind of stuff.
You do, man.
So you got this whole brand that essentially is clothing, an award show like we were talking about, and a magazine now. And I know you have so many other things that you probably can't talk about or that you have in the works, because I don't know, you seem like very someone that has a lot of ideas, and you just get them out there and do what you can with them.
There is no shortage of ideas, that is for sure. Being able to execute those ideas is a completely different animal. Yeah, I mean, the brand's great, right? The swag is cool. It's kind of become the marketing piece for this whole thing now. But it really spawned, it really paved the way and spawned the magazine. And the magazine, we're only 2 episodes in, or issues, whatever you want to call them. We're only two magazines in, and so far so good. We have a lot of great feedback from them. Some really supportive advertisers in the magazine, which is awesome. Second magazine's out. You could find it in a parts house near you. If you can't, you can get one on the website for like $5. Basically just covers the shipping to get it to you. But
yeah, I got the first edition right there on the bookshelf.
Oh, I didn't even see that. Nice.
And the one behind you with Mike and Jeff, is that the second edition you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, we're gonna have a bunch of them at AHR handing out. So you'll be able to find them
at the actual convention.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll be able to find them in the NAVAC booth, the Viper booth, Supco booth. Like, they're gonna, pretty much anybody who advertised in the magazine, we're trying to work with them to get magazines at their booth at AHR. So these things are just gonna be littered everywhere at AHR. So
yeah, because before you could only get them if you went to the award show. I have the original one too, and then that's the official one you released, basically to the public. And it's a really cool magazine for anybody that doesn't know. The HVAC Tactical magazine, it's kind of like bringing social media out in magazine form, right? You got all the guys that you follow, you see on Instagram, YouTube, wherever you guys follow your creators, HVAC creators, and there's plumbing and other trades. I know you're trying to dip into everything just to get the trades out there. And it's a really cool thing. It's a lot of articles by people that I know too. Yep. I know you had Matt Showers in there, and HVAC Doctor, all these guys that we know and follow and become friends with online. Well, now there's a magazine form that you can read, take with you on the go, and kind of see what everybody's up to, and little backstories, and it's really neat.
Yeah, essentially the magazine, the show catalog, if you will, from Atlanta, is what really sparked this whole thing. The catalog was just a catalog for the show. It was just something we kind of had fun with. And everybody was like, dude, this thing's like a legitimate magazine. And I was like, yeah, I guess it kind of is. And then we just everybody was like, at the same time, we're like, we should launch a magazine. And I was just like, I don't know nothing about magazines, dude. So we just wanted to do something that was cool and different. We're not trying to replace any other publications that are currently out there. Just trying to create a social magazine, right? Like a Sports Illustrated, if you will, for HVAC, minus the bikinis. I'm not going to put a bikini on. So, but yeah, it's
better or worse right there.
Really trying to just focus on the social media movement, right? So we're utilizing people who are already in the community to write articles, to highlight them on the pages in the magazine, put guys on the cover. You know, the next magazine should drop in April. That'll be the third magazine next year. For 2024. We're trying to push out 4 magazines. So we're trying to push out quarterly, and pending we get advertisers and everybody stays, you know, on ship, then we're good to go. So there's no shortage of content, if you will, no shortage of guys to highlight, and, you know, and talk about what people are doing and moves that are being made. But, you know, just always trying to think of new things that can just be different, you know, do something that's going to be exciting, that draws people into the trade, right? Like, man, I want to go do HVAC because these guys do this, right? So just cool stuff, man. I mean, think about when ESPN magazine came out. People were like, what is this? Right? When Sports Illustrated magazine came out, people were like, what is this? And now look at them. You know, they're staples in the industry for what they do. And
no, and it's cool because, like I said, you get to see these guys that you either just watch or you get to know online, whatever it may be. And then, like I said, all these little articles that you have in there, they're actually written by these guys that you know, or these actual technicians and stuff like that. Because we don't want to read or look through a magazine that's full of just stuff by manufacturers or anything. In that area, we want to see actual that, and that's the same reason why a lot of these guys, you know, get a lot of followers on Instagram, YouTube, whatever it is, because they're actually out there working in the field, and people want to see that little journey, or the, you know, how they do things. I know everybody wants to see how Jeff does his next install, you know, stuff like that is what is really cool about it. And it's in a magazine form now. And that's just one of the many things that you have going on.
Yeah, it's not without its challenges, that's for sure. But at the end of the day, I mean, I'm just trying to do things that are just different, man. I don't want to try to replicate what somebody else is doing.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
We have some other things up my sleeve right now, but I really can't talk about that. But hopefully 2024 unleashes a completely different animal, dude. So right now we're just trying to really build the team. We got an amazing magazine team right now. As long as we can keep the momentum going, I think we're just going to be unstoppable, man. And the award show is overwhelming, to say the least. But, you know, we're managing, and we learned a lot this year, just like we learned a lot last year. And so we're going to start planning for Orlando probably in March. So we're, you know, we just need those extra couple months, man, to just really get things smoothed out and just on cruise control. And yeah,
man, I can imagine, because it's not a simple thing to pull off, and we'll get into all that too, and because I want to hear about, you know, how you put that together, how you managed to do all that. Because I went to the Atlanta one, I missed the Vegas one, but like the Atlanta one, that one was like so legit. You had the red carpet, the little you know, the fancy dinner, the 3-course meal, the just the presentation, the stage, everything. Like it's a really cool experience. I know there's a lot that goes into it just for us to have a great, you know, night together.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of work. It's expensive. You know, we got some amazing sponsors that stepped up to the plate to take care of that. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces, and people don't realize how much work it takes to put something like this on. It's not like you're just planning a barbecue. You know what I mean? Like,
No, it's not. It's not like a little get together or anything. Like it's formal. There's everybody's taken care of. You have the drinks. Usually you have some sort of thing going on with the what do you call that? Like before the show, yeah, that
cocktail
little
hour.
Cocktail hour, like all that. Like everything's thoughtfully planned out.
Yeah, there's just a lot of moving pieces of the whole thing. And I think it wouldn't be so difficult. It'd be a whole lot easier for me, like if I were just throwing it together, right? But I don't know how to do anything regular, right? Like everything I do has to be 110%. And I think that by going the extra mile, putting in the extra work, we deliver more for the sponsors, right? And we really create a production. We create a night that you're just not going to forget. Right. And again, coming into like paving the way for this younger generation, right? Where now they can look at this and go, holy crap, dude. If I'm thinking about getting into the trades, I want to go into HVAC. Look at what these guys are doing. Right. And, you know, I mean, is there anything in plumbing that's happening like this? Is there anything in electrical that's happening like this? You know, and it's like, I'm just trying to pave the way, do something different, make HVAC sexy again, and just draw people into the trade. Right.
And
And
there's no knock on plumbing, but there's
not at all.
plumbers that go to this award show, and
100%.
it's an HVAC show, right? Like, it's
Yeah. I
for
think,
everybody, but you get plumbers and you get other trades in there too.
yeah, well, I think what's happening right now is these plumbers, right? Well, to be fair, they do the heating side of things, right? So they do a lot of
Mhm.
boilers and stuff like radiant flooring, heating, stuff like that. But, you know, they see what's happening. They're part of the movement on social media and they just want to be part of it, man. And dude, awesome. Come on in, right? As long as you can get a ticket to get into the show, you're good to go. But it's not an invite only, right? We're still getting that, even though we reiterate to people that it's not an invite only, but people keep thinking that it is. You just have to get a ticket. And right now the show is completely sold out. So you can't get a ticket right now. But
And do you have a
because,
waiting list of guys trying to get in still?
yeah, now because we have a waiting list for refunding the tickets isn't a big deal because I got somebody else
Yeah.
who's going to buy them. So yeah, it's pretty wild, man. This thing's way bigger than I ever anticipated for sure. I'm humbled by the whole thing. That just this little idea that, you know, I had that I just really wanted to honor other people in the trade, man. Just pay, you know, respect and just say, dude, you guys are masters at what you do and great job, pat on the back. Like, let's go have a beer. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
this is what it turned into. So
No, it's really cool because it's something like you said, you can celebrate with your peers, a lot of other guys that are actually dedicated and, you know, love what they do as much as you do, because like that's hard to find locally, to be honest. I get along better, and I'm able to talk to people on Instagram, on YouTube, online, on any of these platforms much better than some of the guys locally, because everybody here, you know, they might not have the same passion at what they do, like any trade that they do. And it's good to see that all that group, you know, kind of flocks together at these events, at the HVAC Tactical Awards Show or the AHR, that convention that goes on, and we can. And I know there's plenty of other ones. I know I've only been to the AHR one, but I know there's others, and it's always cool because you get to meet and, you know, pick somebody's brain or just talk about HVAC.
yeah, I mean, there's no shortage of talent when you go walk into a room of 300 HVAC guys, right? It's just amazing, man. You're going to learn something new from someone that you didn't expect. And you're going to walk out of there with a friendship and a new contact. And whether it be, you know, another contractor, or whether it be a manufacturer, OEM, this is a place to be, man. You want to meet people in this industry who are doing what you're doing, passionate like you're passionate, and then also meeting companies, right, that maybe we might be willing to work with you. Like this
Oh
is
yeah.
the event to do that at. So you start off at the award show and then you spend the next 2 or 3 days at AHR and just keep building those relationships. And the next thing you know, man, something has changed drastically in your career. So
Yes, for anybody listening, if you've never been at least to the AHR expo, you bet if you go, you better network the hell out of it, because like you said, there's other guys or friends that you can make too, but all these companies are out there, right? They're going to be looking at who you are and what you do, and you know, you can network and make relationships out of thin air just by being there, going around talking to them. And the award show is kind of a more intimate um, place to do that, because like you said, you had that cocktail hour that you do. That was really cool because it's a mix of everybody and who's who. Like you said, like all these manufacturers or companies that make the products that we use, whether that's refrigeration technologies, Field Piece, Navac, like the list goes on and on. I've met a few of them there. I've met a few of them beforehand because I'm on social media and the stuff that I do. But even if you don't do that stuff, just go and network the hell out of it. That's the best thing you can do for yourself, and you never know what can come out of it.
1,000%. Yeah, it's a great time, man. I have a great time, even though I'm stressed out as can be and trying to make sure everything's going off without a hitch. But
yeah, it's fun. It's definitely fun. So like I said, if anybody listening, you missed out, there's always the next one is Orlando, I believe. So there's always next time. This thing is every year.
Yeah, the goal I think too is to not have so many sponsors on the show, right? Like we need the sponsors to pay for the show. I think as this thing continues to grow, we can kind of begin to dwindle down the amount of sponsors that we need. And then just, tell our sponsors, hey, look, we're only taking so many sponsors, and this is kind of where we need you to be to cover the cost of the show. And we'll just go from there. But we're getting a lot of sponsors kind of coming in who are like, hey, I heard about this thing. I want to be part of it. Like we had people call me like a week ago, and I'm just like, sorry, dude. And they're like, well, what can we do? And I was like, well, if you're ready to stroke me a check for XYZ. And they're like, oh yeah, that's probably not going to happen. Okay. Appreciate you. Thanks for sliding through.
Yeah. They must not know
well, it's always
how things work.
It's always, people talk a great game, right? Until it's time to open up the checkbook. And then it's like, all of a sudden they're not the one who makes the decision. And, their company's not going to go for that. And it's just funny. Like, we just want to give you stuff. Like, we don't want to sponsor. We just want to give you stuff to give away at the show. And I'm like, yeah, we're not going to do that. So
yeah. And that's a difference that I've noticed, right? Now that I've actually been on social media, I get to talk to these companies. There's some companies that get it. And the one that's a good example is like RLS, right? They get it. They do all that marketing. They have everything that they make it fun at their booth, the HR, all that. And I've talked to Paul plenty of times, great dude. All their marketing team's really cool. And I've had others that are also competitors to them, and they know nothing, or they don't want to invest in any of us that actually use their tools.
Yeah. Fortunately, the sponsors that we have on deck now, all great companies, all great people.
So how many do you have
right now? Sponsors, I think like 38. Okay, sponsors.
So it's a good amount.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been challenging, but we're managing it, and it's going to be nice when this is all over. And Monday morning, I can just take a deep breath and just be done, right?
And speaking of sponsors, you did lock down VETO Pro Pack to sponsor this next one in Chicago. That's a pretty swing for the fences type of deal, I think, because you were able to lock down those EDC backpacks for anybody attending the show.
Yeah, obviously that wasn't an easy task. It wasn't a small ask either.
I was gonna say it's not cheap, like on their behalf.
It took a lot of conversations with VETO to get that done. But VETO sees what we're doing. They want to be part of it. And, hopefully we can deliver, what they're looking for out of this whole thing. And I think, the show is one thing, the live stream's one thing, right? The pictures are one thing. My social media stuff is one thing, but then you start adding in all of these. Think about if you take just from today, because I saw a picture just today that was posted of the backpacks from the last show, right? So if you take and even the backpacks from the Vegas show, right? So 2 years ago. So if you take all that content of backpacks alone, the pictures and the content that was created over the last year or two, right? Now, fast forward a year or two from now, and how many VETO backpacks with the award show logo on there are you going to see in social media content, right? So it's not just my content, right? It starts multiplying as everybody else is doing their own stuff and reposting other people's stuff. Like it just becomes this tidal wave, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, VETO seems to see the writing on the wall. I very much appreciate them. They've been super gracious through this whole thing. And I feel bad for my buddy in Chicago because we shipped 8 pallets of backpacks to his house.
Well, got to get it there somehow.
Yeah.
So they're the official host is what you call it, right?
Yeah, they're the host. So basically, their logo is attached to the award show logo. The title
So,
sponsor is, as usual, Supco Trade Fox.
oh, okay,
So
okay.
yeah, they're the title sponsor, and then we have our gold sponsors, our silver sponsors, but the host is right up there by the title slot, and they're just basically attached to everything that we're doing. So if the award show logo gets sent out in any type of marketing or post or anything, you're going to see VETO. At the end of the day, man, it's not about the money. I never started doing this whole thing for the money. It was always just to give back to the trade. It was always just to lift up the community. And I think when the community values themselves more, then the whole industry begins to elevate, right? And so for me, it's like, will I eventually be able to make money on the show? Probably.
I was going to say,
cool?
you don't make anything out of the show that you've done, and you've done it about 3 years now.
Yeah, I mean, last year, and I said this on the last podcast, I think it was Gil's podcast I was on.
Yeah.
I lost 10 grand coming out of Atlanta. I left 10 grand in the hole coming out of Atlanta to throw that show. So I don't know about you, but 10 grand is a lot of money. Like, you know what I mean? And, for some people, it's not a big deal. 10 grand is like $100, but for me, it's definitely not $100. So,
yeah.
But I just looked at it from a standpoint of, sometimes you have to kind of invest in something if you really believe in it, right? And sometimes you got to take the hit in order to get through that, through the next mountaintop, if you will. So I think for me, this year, we might make a few bucks. I haven't shaken out all the numbers yet, but we're not making a killing, that's for sure. But as long as I break even, like that's all that I really care about. I don't want to leave a show negative again. That wasn't a great feeling for sure. The stress just isn't worth it, quite honestly. But
well, there's a whole process, because like you said, it's something you believe in. It's something that a lot of people have really gravitated to and gotten behind. So eventually, like with anything, it gets better the more you put into it. So you put a lot into it to start out, because like I said, I didn't go to the Vegas one, but like I was told Vegas to Atlanta was a huge jump, a huge difference.
Just go look at the video. And for being the first show, it was a good show,
Yeah.
But it just doesn't compare to Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta just raised the bar.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, if it had stayed like that, then yeah, that's concerning. But like, it jumped up drastically. You went all in to build up the quality to it too.
Yeah, and the whole, again, I'm trying to make a production, right? Like, this is a show. I call it the show because it's a show, right? We're putting on a show. So it has an entertainment value to it. It's got, humor wrapped up into it. And I'm trying to do whatever I can to try to emulate something you would watch on TV, on mainstream stuff, but still keep it real and just
real and intimate,
genuine,
and
you know what I mean? I'm not trying to make it gimmicky. I've had several people be like, "Oh, we could do this and we could do that," and I'm like, "We could, but we're not gonna." The hosted slot on the logo was basically what I offered to VETO as a, hey, if you are willing to give us the backpacks, I'm willing to put your name on here. No money, just give us the backpacks. So that was backpacks were their form of payment. So, but yeah, I mean, if you were to go buy those backpacks full retail price, like at the store, and if you went into the store and said, I want 300 of those backpacks, it'd cost you in the ballpark of about $84,000. So
yeah, and I have one. I do use it more than I thought I would. So it is a really cool backpack. If you guys, I don't know if you're outdoor people, or
it's a great backpack. It's a little hard to travel with on an airplane.
Yes,
because it doesn't want to fit under every seat. Some of them they do, and some of them they don't. So
I didn't even bother. I had to put it overhead, but
yeah. Well, I learned that pretty fast. So.
But it is cool. It's hard to go back to a different backpack after using one of those. So I'm pretty sure a lot of guys are going to be really excited. And like you said, then it generates buzz, and that's good. That's good for VETO, because they're going to have their 300 people with backpacks posting about their backpacks for a long time afterwards.
Yeah, I think and one of the owners of VETO is going to be at the show. Her name is Jill, and
awesome.
I was really excited. She didn't want to come on stage, even though I asked her to. And
is anybody from Are they gonna speak or somebody from VETO?
No, so we did things a little bit different this show. No sponsors are going to speak. Nobody's presenting. No 10, 15-minute speeches. No, none of that. We got a lot of feedback from people after Atlanta, and we decided to 86 that off of the agenda. So what we're doing now is we're actually co-presenting awards. So like, for instance, let me think here. Who's going to be with? So Gil Cavey from HVAC Uncensored is going to present the Podcast of the Year award, right? And presenting with him will be Lance from Solderweld, and he'll actually not be representing Solderweld. He'll be there on behalf of Supco. So
gotcha.
So basically, all of the high-end, top-tier sponsors got the opportunity to co-present an award. And so VETO, I gave VETO the opportunity to do that. She didn't want to. She said, put this person that, that we know, he'll do it for us. And okay, no problem. So there will be somebody on stage presenting that will be there on behalf of VETO, but it won't be her. But she'll be in the crowd. She's an amazing woman. VETO's an amazing company. They're doing some really cool stuff. They're just, and man, they blew up super fast, man, super fast. So if anything, I'm like, let's sit down and have dinner, and you can tell me how I can grow that fast.
Oh yeah, yeah, because I've talked to a few of them, and it's crazy, and then the amount of products that they have going on too, and that's a whole, like, the scale of that just got so much bigger, and they're doing great. So you're changing things up this time. You took some feedback
back 3 years in a row. You know what I mean?
Well, just with the whole show in general, but we would get I got both backpacks. I know I didn't make the Vegas one, but I was like, I'll take my bag, and it was a cool backpack. You get to walk around AHR, gather everything that you can. There's a lot of free items that get given out, and now you're gonna have a VETO bag, which has plenty of room. So make sure you go with that empty. Walk around and snag you some swag and cups and hats, and there's a bunch of stuff out there.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I'm just a regular HVAC guy, right? Like, I never anticipated doing any of this, and when I can really kind of take a step back away from it all and just look, and if I were to say, like, hey, I'm not the one who kind of did all of this, right? And I just go, man, this is actually happening. This is a thing in the industry right now. And the fact that so many people are just on board with it is it's humbling, man. So I'm just
it's one of those things you never know unless you do it. So I'm glad that you went out there and you had the balls to go and do that stuff, because, like, who else would be like, let me hand out awards and see what everybody thinks, and then, like, let me just put on a whole show that people may love or may hate. I mean, that's all cool stuff that you just have to try it.
Yeah. And honestly, man, if I'm being just real about it all, like, this is my element. You know what I mean? Like, I come from a background of performing. I used to be in the music business, and I've done HVAC my entire life, but I took a 3 or 4 year hiatus out of HVAC and went and did music. And as a kid, I always wanted to be an actor. Like, that was my dream. And so for me, it's like, this whole show is like taking all of these skills that I've learned over my entire career, right? From video production to music engineering and writing and arranging and just doing all this stuff, and then being able to put it all together for this one show. You know what I mean? And it's pretty incredible when I'm like, I don't have to rely on people to do certain things. And you're just like, well, you're an HVAC guy. How do you know how to do that? Well, I have background in it. I used to do it. So, but yeah, it's interesting. And that's why I say HVAC guys can do anything, man. It's like, if you can put your hands on something and figure out how it works and how to fix it, like, it only takes you 5 minutes to figure something out. And then you're like, I got this.
So. Yeah. I mean, that's one aspect of being an HVAC tech, but I had the same or a similar conversation with Walter last week on my podcast, and he said the same thing, because he asked me, like, who does your logos, who does your dad's branding and all that. I was like, I do. I'm pretty good with computers and Photoshop and all that stuff. I used to draw, like, all that stuff that I've done in the past came into play for me doing HVAC, right? Yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, like, my dad started a company. I'll do your logo. I'll do your business cards. I'll do this. I'll do that.
How old are you now?
Me? 36.
Okay, so you're close to me. I'm 41. I'll be 42. I'll be 42 when the show's here. So my birthday is just around the corner. But yeah, I think we come from the same kind of background, you know, and the same generation. And, you know, we're old school, but we're new school at the same time. We get to kind of ride that fence, so we can do both
we're in that,
very well.
Yeah, that fine line right there.
Yep. So, and I love it. I wouldn't want it any other way. I wouldn't want to be the old timer who's just old school, and I wouldn't want to be the young kid who's just new school, right? Like, I love my generation, and dude, growing up the way we grew up, you just can't beat that, and you can't do that anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Same here. I grew up taking apart things, putting them back together, trying to figure out how things worked. Like, I was actually outside. I wasn't on my iPad all day or whatever it is that they do now. But yeah. Or any video games or anything like that. Like, I liked video games too, but I wasn't like glued to them. Right. I liked working with my hands and stuff. So like, I was around, my grandfather was a mechanic. He taught all his kids. He had my dad has 9 siblings. So like, all of them learned how to work on cars.
Holy mackerel. 10 kids.
Yeah. And they used to leave all of us, all the kids at my grandma's house. Right. And they're like, plop us there, and we'd all have to just entertain ourselves or go and hang out with grandpa. Right. Like I said, he had a shop at his house, and I was always around tools, always around like trying to figure out how things worked. And I loved it. I wouldn't have it any other way. Right. Yep. Got into the trades and
weld and everything, dude. So taught me how to do sheet metal. Like, I mean, dude, my grandpa's the man, dude. He's the man.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you grew up around the trades, right? Because I've heard bits and pieces of your story. So your dad does HVAC, and your grandpa did something similar?
Yeah, my grandfather's he's a master sheet metal tin bender. I mean, he could build anything out of sheet metal. And I learned how to do that stuff from him. I started as just real young dude, just sweeping the shop, right? Picking up pieces of scrap metal on the floor. And I don't remember this, but my grandparents will often remind me that I was 4 years old in this old, like 1970, no, it was older than that, probably like a 1968 full-wheel drive GMC truck. My grandpa had all this metal laid out in the driveway, you know, his hand making it and everything right on his trailer. And I jumped in the truck and turn the key on this old GMC truck. And those old trucks, when you turn the key and it's a manual, right? It's stuck in gear, the truck starts to go. And so as I went and turned the key, I was 4 years old, the truck started to go, and I ran over all my grandpa's ductwork in the driveway. And my grandma tells me, the story goes that my grandma had to stop my grandpa from murdering me because he was pissed that I ran over all his ductwork he just got done making all day. So
yeah, man. Yeah, growing up, you're afraid of those or getting anybody upset because they will lay hands on you.
They will beat you, dude. I grew up that way, so you know, getting beat was just part of the game, you know.
Well, I was trying to word it so it wouldn't be.
We just call it getting beat. That doesn't mean that he was punching me in the face, right? But yeah, I definitely.
That's how it used to be. That's how it used to be.
Got whooped. That is for sure. But yeah, both my dad and my grandfather, both are in the industry, and oddly enough, my grandfather's, you know, he's like 90, 91 now. His dementia's kind of starting to kick in a little bit, and so after the award show, probably sometime in February, I'm going to make a trip back to Arizona, and I'm going to do a podcast with my grandfather before I can't do it anymore. I wanted to do it this year, and I just couldn't get it down there with the equipment and everything just to get it done. So I'm going to make it a point after the award show to get down there and do it. But yeah, man,
that's awesome. I've actually had that in mind for myself with my dad, because
that'd be great.
I was like, man, I want to do it when I can get a spot at the AHR one, the podcast pavilion. And I think the Vegas one would be a good one. I'm going to try and plan for that. But that was another thing that Walter asked me, because nobody's asked me that before, but I already had it in my head. Like, I would love to have him on the show, because he was an electrician. He taught himself the food service industry because there was a job opening that was offered to him. And now he's like the best at that, like what he does. So I was like, I need to document that at some point. And that's really cool that if you can do that with your grandpa.
Yeah, I mean, those are, you know, for my grandpa being as old as he is, like, you may not get another opportunity. You know what I mean?
And
I
the
feel like,
stories, yeah.
yeah, he's got stories, man. And, you know, some of them may not be HVAC related, but they're all great stories. But no, I just think he's got a ton of knowledge, you know, and I think asking him the right questions, if he can remember the details, I think he's got a lot to offer this younger generation for sure. But yeah, man, I mean, my uncle, both my uncles did HVAC. My dad did HVAC, you know, like, oh, my cousins did it. Like, we all grew up just doing it because it was just part of the family business, you know?
That's
So,
cool.
Yeah, I love it, dude. I don't know that I would have chose a different, if I was going to choose a trade, I don't know that I would have chose a different trade, but I didn't choose HVAC. HVAC chose me. That's what everybody says. So sounds great. I'm going to stick with it.
And so then who had a company? Was it your grandpa or your dad?
Yeah. So my grandfather had a company so my grandfather was working at the mines, right? They were like mining copper and stuff, but he wasn't the guy out there actually mining the copper. He worked in like the mechanic shop. Well, when he worked in the mechanic shop, my grandfather my grandfather was a mechanic. He also was a sheet metal guy. He also did fiberglass. So he could like repair like fiberglass hoods and stuff like that on these big dump trucks and stuff like that. So he would make like fiberglass molds. And so he could pretty much do everything. And when they needed something that nobody else could do, they'd come to him, do you know how to do this? And he'd be like, yeah, I could do that. Even if he didn't know how to do it, he would just say, yeah, I could do that. And he would figure it out. So he became like this go-to guy. Well, when the mines began to shut down and they laid off everybody, they let go of everybody except for him. And so they said, we need you to do this as we start to shut this whole place down. And so he was like basically the last one employed out there. Well, through all of that, he was doing like installing like furnaces and swamp coolers and stuff on these new construction homes as just side jobs, right? So he'd be driving through town and he'd see this guy building a house and he'd pull up and say, who's going to make all your ductwork for your furnace and your swamp cooler? And they'd be like, well, I don't have a guy. And he goes, well, I do sheet metal. I can do that for you. And so he started doing sheet metal on these new construction homes. And my grandfather just kind of got to a point where he was like, hey, look, I kind of don't want the business. Like, I don't mind doing the work, but I don't want anything to do with the business. Like, so what he did is when my dad also worked at the mine, as my dad got older, my dad got laid off. The mine paid for him to go back to school. And so my dad went to HVAC school, and then he got out of HVAC school. And my grandfather was like, hey, you want to start a business? You got your license now or whatever. And he goes like, just take all these people that I've already done all this work for. Let's start a company and you can run it, you know? And so that's kind of how the whole thing started. And then my dad ran that for like 20 years and then ended up closing it down. I don't know, like 2003, something like that. And it was around that time I vowed to get out of the business. I was out of the industry for about 4 years.
And what made you want to get out of the business?
Oh, dude, I hated it. I think it was the family business aspect and just working with my grandpa and my dad. And there was several moments where me and my grandpa were about to kill each other. I think for me, one of the last straws was my grandpa grabbing me and slamming me against the side of an enclosed trailer. And, I didn't know what was going to happen. So I worked with my grandparents every day. Like me and my grandpa would go do these jobs and my grandma would just tag along. She was the gopher. She would clean up the job site. She'd make lunch for us. You know, she'd bring like the crock pot and just, making, just bean burritos and whatever. Right. You know how nanas do. So, it was a great time, dude. And customers loved my grandparents, man. They loved them. And quite honestly, customers want to hang out and talk all the time. Well, my grandmother would be like, she'd sit there and she'd talk, like, keep them busy. I'm going to go finish this. Right. And so, I kind of miss it. I kind of miss working with my grandpa. But my grandpa definitely had an attitude. He was a hard man to get along with when you're working, because he's just got this high level of expectation out of your ass. You know what I mean? And,
I get it. I have the same kind of dynamic, and I can only imagine because, like you said, it was your dad and your grandpa that you were dealing with.
Yeah.
I deal with my brother and my dad at the most, and my dad doesn't like to kind of push us around or anything. Like, he wants us to be who we are and kind of better ourselves instead of getting after us all the time. So he's a little different. But my grandpa, never worked with him, but man, like, he had that same attitude that you're talking about. He would flip a switch sometimes, but it's just like the I don't know what it is, but it's that macho, thing that they have going on, and it's aggressive at times, and they're from a different generation and all that. So
100%. 100%.
it's very different. Yeah. And I
Well, my
totally
dad
get
would
it.
tell me stories, and my uncle would tell me stories that, he'd be like, my grandpa would be like, "Hey, go get me the big the big screwdriver out of the toolbox." And he said, "I'd show up with the biggest screwdriver I could find, and it was the wrong one, right?" And my grandpa would he'd turn around and he would take the screwdriver and then he would smack them with the screwdriver on the back of the hand, and he'd be like, "That's the wrong one. Go get me the right one." And it was just like, geez, bro, like ruthless, man. Fortunately, I didn't have to deal with that chapter of my grandfather, but yeah, I mean, my grandfather was he was a froggy old man, dude. I mean, I remember in his 60s, maybe early 70s, like 40-year-old, 50-year-old men backing down from him because he's ready to throw down with these people in a public place. And I'm just like, holy crap, dude.
I was about to say, my grandpa, what my dad would tell me about him is because my dad would hang out with him when they were younger and bars or whatever it is. And if anybody even looked at my grandpa the wrong way, he'd want to start a fight. That's just, he was always ready to go. And that's it was just different back then, but that's how he was too.
Different generation for sure.
You said you got out to take a little hiatus, a little break. What was that whole thing about being in the music, or what exactly did you get into?
For me, it was like I was just burned out with HVAC, dude. I'm done. I've been doing this for way too long, and at that point in time, I think I was probably 21. So, I'm 21 years old and I'm burned out in the
You're
trade.
already burnt out.
Yeah, dude, I grew up doing this, right?
Yeah.
When I tell people I've been doing this my entire life, and I tell them, I've been doing this for 30 plus years, and they're just like, dude, you're way too young to be doing that for that long. And I'm like, you have no idea, dude. You just have no clue. And I'm grateful that I've been in the business this long because I've seen it all change, right? And I don't know that I would be doing what I'm doing today with HVAC Tactical had I not been in the trade for that long. But yeah, I was just burned out. I wanted to get out of the industry, and I was kind of tinkering in music at the time. And I was like, man, I really want to do this full time. I want to do a music career, and pipe dream, right? So imagine where I am right now in the trade, right? With the brand and this whole thing, right? Making these waves, people know what's going on. That's how I was in the music industry, but it was on it was more of Christian hip hop and R&B, right? So that was my realm. And so, we had a camp of people, man. We were just traveling, doing shows. I remember, I think it was 2005, maybe. I was doing almost a show a week. So just traveling, getting paid to do music. I mean, it was incredible, dude. This is what I wanted to do. I had three offers for record labels, and I turned them all down. It just didn't feel right to me. What I've learned is that when you're in a room full of people and you can turn people's heads, and all of a sudden you become the quote unquote, the hottest thing in the room, right? Everybody wants a piece of you, right? And people will lip service you. They'll tell you whatever you want to hear. And then next week, when you go to pick up the phone to call them, they're nowhere to be found, right? Because they just want to be seen with you. They want to take a picture with you. They want people to think that they're your buddy, right? And it's funny because fast forward to today, and it's the same thing happens, right? After the award show in Atlanta, walking the show in AHR for the next 3 days, it was like a relapse of freaking 20 years ago for me, right? Where these people in AHR, they're like, "Oh man, we heard about your show last night." I'm like, "That's cool. Appreciate that." Yeah, we heard it was an amazing thing. I don't even know this person, right? And they're just building this whole thing up. I'm like, "Cool, man. Hey, I really appreciate that. Oh man, we want to get involved and blah, 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 blah," right? Just lip service. Then the push comes to shove and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're not going to do anything with you this year, but maybe next year." I'm like, "Yeah, I saw this one coming, dude." So it's just interesting to see that the dynamic of people doesn't change, right? Even though that was a generation ago, if you will. And so, but yeah, I mean, music for me I miss music. I miss it a lot of music in my family. I was probably, in my family, I was probably the only one who took music that far, like to try to go professional with it. But my kids are musically inclined, and you know, they play multiple instruments and they can sing, and like, yeah, so it's really exciting.
So when you say like Christian hip hop and all that, you were actually like rapping, you were on the mic, or were you producing?
I was doing it all. So
Okay.
like I do everything now in HVAC. I was doing it all, and it started with me being an artist. And so, yes, I know it's hard to believe, right? Because like I get on stage, people are like,
is there video?
"Who's this white boy?" I could share some stuff with you, and you'd be like, "Dude, there's no," you wouldn't believe that it's me, but you can recognize my voice. So, but yeah,
Hey,
I
man,
mean,
everybody's path is different. It's crazy because like we have all these like when I say I love what I do, it's not the only thing that I do, right? We have other interests, hobbies,
Yep.
other things that we've done, and that's one of yours was music. And there's different outlets for us because yeah, it's one thing to love what you do, like your work, but it's not what you're going to be doing 24/7. Or I hope it's not. You know, you need to unwind, relax. Maybe you have a hobby, maybe you have something else, like a dream or whatever it is, and you can also kind of make both things work. But
this is where you need to chop up your podcast, because this is a reliable HVACR exclusive. Like I don't think I've ever told anybody this on a podcast.
I was trying to remember if I've heard you talk about music before. I was like, okay,
I've touched on it, but never,
yeah, I think so.
Never straight up like this. So, but yeah, I mean, I went from being an artist to then turning into like, I actually went to college for one day for music. Right. And I sat in the class and they said, well, here's the syllabus. This is what we're going to be learning. And I looked at it, and they went for like a 15-minute break. I got in my car and I left. And my buddy was like, "You're leaving?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm leaving." "And why?" And I go, "Because there's nothing that you're going to teach me in this class. I've already learned all this stuff. I've already know I'm physically doing this in studios right now. So what are you going to teach me? Like, I'm going to get a piece of paper? Like, I don't care about that. I don't care about school." You know what I mean? So for me, it was about the craft. It's not about getting a paper or certificate or anything like that. And so I went from an artist to an engineer to production to arrangement to like writing, and I was guest starring on people's tracks, like singing hooks for them. And yeah, it was awesome, dude. I loved the music business. As long as you could stay away from shiesty people, you know, everybody's out to make a buck. So it's wild.
Oh, it's like in anything, you gotta watch out, watch your back. But so that's really cool. How long did you do that for?
I think the last concert I did was right after I moved here to Texas, and that would have been like in 2015. I flew out to Wyoming. I think it was in Wyoming. I flew to Wyoming for some festival that they were doing. They wanted me to come out, and I was like, I'm like coming out of retirement for this thing, right? So, and that was the last show that I ever did. And
did you have a stage name or anything?
I went by the name of Benito P.
Benito P.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah. A lot of my friends in my younger years call me Benito.
Yeah.
So my grandmother calls me Beno, Beno. So yeah, my grandmother's
where did you
I
grow
grew
up?
up in Southern Arizona. My grandmother looks like Geronimo. I mean, she speaks fluent Spanish. And so I know I look like I'm the white boy, but I can throw down a little bit of Spanish. And it's funny, like the first time that I ever wrote like a verse in Spanish and I dropped it at a concert, people were like, "What the?" It was funny, dude. It's like when I say things in Spanish, people look at me like the dog just spoke. It's very off-putting for some people. So
I didn't know that you grew up around Spanish as well.
Dude, I feel way more comfortable in a room full of Hispanics than I do white people.
That's awesome.
Give me a plate of tacos, bro, and I'm good, man. I don't need fancy steaks or anything like that. So,
man, that explains so much. But okay. Okay, so then you did the whole music career. That's a awesome little tidbit. You never know. That's why I love doing these shows, is just learning about all these guys, because I see everybody online and stuff, but I don't really know them until I get to sit down and talk to them. And then you got back into HVAC with your dad. Is that how you got back into the trades?
At that point in time, it was 2005. I got a job at a local shop in Tucson, Arizona, and I was there for, man, I don't know, maybe like 5 months, 6 months, and the place was just run disastrously bad. I mean, it was crazy. And at that point in time, I was talking to somebody about a record deal, and it looked very promising. And so I wasn't happy where I was working anyway. So I was like, you know what? I'm getting a deal. I'm out. And the buddy that I was working with was like, he was excited because he's just like, oh, my guy got a record deal, you know? And so I ended up leaving there, and then and I ended up not taking that record deal. And from there, I was just doing side jobs with me and my grandfather. And that was the best time, dude, because I could work on music full time and I could go do like a job a week, right? And pay all my bills. It was no problem. I was living by myself. It wasn't a big deal. And then I decided to get married, and I thought in 2007, and I thought I should probably go get a real job, because music and this one job a week thing doesn't really work for me if I'm going to try to provide. Right. So I went and got a job with a company. And it's funny because this whole time I've been in this industry, I was never EPA certified, right? Never had NATE, none of that stuff. And the guy that I was going to get a job with was like, you know, you got to get your EPA, right? And I was like, for what? And he's like, you got to get your EPA, dude. And I was like, whatever. So he sent me to take the test, and I passed the test. And
man,
I was
when this airs, this always happens when it's brought up. The EPA will enter the chat. I already know. It always happens. I don't know who it is.
There's a EPA statute of limitations. I think we're past that. So, and then I worked at this place for about 2 years. I was like the golden boy. I could do no wrong. I was like employee of the month, like 3 months in a row. And they had never done employee of the month before. And then they never did employee of the month after those 3 months. Like, it was like groundbreaking for this little company, and made a lot of really good friends there. Learned a lot from some tech guys, because even though I'd been in this industry for a really long time, there was a lot of technical stuff that I just didn't know. And so I learned a lot of troubleshooting stuff, technical stuff, and then started learning about sales. It was a guy, but it turned in, he's a good friend of mine now. But we worked together at that company, and he taught me a lot about sales. And then I came in one day, me and the owner, we just he would always randomly call me, and he'd be like, hey man, what are you up to? And I was like, well, I'm on a roof right now. What's up? And he's like, oh, just calling to see what's going on. You know, he just wanted to call and just BS, you know? And one time I was in a bad mood, and he was calling me, and I was like, dude, what does this guy want? Like, he's just bugging me, you know? And he's like, what are you up to? And I said, well, I'm getting ready to diagnose this compressor. I'm pretty sure it's a grounded compressor. And he's like, yeah, well, you know, what you want to do is you want to pull that harness off, and you want to, test continuity, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, dude, I go, yeah, I got this. I said, guy's name was Paul, great guy. But I said, Paul, I got this. It's not my first rodeo. I said, but it's hard to do this when you're always calling me. And I think that was the beginning of the end. I think maybe he felt disrespected by that. And I was kind of annoyed. It's just like the dynamic began to change after that. And so I just kind of felt like I was being treated differently, started getting kind of crap jobs thrown at me. And it was like, just wasn't the same, dude. I knew something was different. And then one day my buddy was on call, I was on call. My buddy called me, and he goes, hey man, the boss just called me to ask me if I'd be willing to take on call over the weekend. And I was like, I'm on call over the weekend. Why would he ask you that? And he goes, because I think he's going to let you go. And I was like, oh, really? Right. And this is the ego me, right? This was when I still had an ego. I said, oh, really? Okay, I'll fix that. So I walked into the office, and he was there, and he goes, hey, what's going on? I said, well, let me tell you what's going on. I heard that you're planning on letting me go, so I'm going to do you one better. And I slapped my keys on the counter, and I said, I'm just going to go ahead and take off. And he was like, okay, And I thought, oh, that's okay. I guess this was actually going to happen. So, so that was the day after Thanksgiving of 2008.
Oh, wow.
I had a brand new house, hadn't only been in it for a couple months, and I had a baby on the way. And I walked in, and my family, my brother-in-law, my wife was like, "What are you doing home?" I said, "Well, I quit." And they're like, "What do you mean you quit?" So, basically after that was day after Thanksgiving 2008. In March of 2009, I had a contractor's license in my hand, and I was off to the races. So,
oh, cool.
That was my first company. So I stuck around with that for about 5 years, and then got rid of that company, and then moved to Texas.
So, which is the one that you worked with your dad?
Correct.
Oh, that one? Okay.
Yeah, Texas is where I worked with my dad. Well,
in Texas. Okay.
Yeah, well, my dad had a company when I was growing up, and then my dad closed it down. I got out of the business, went and worked for some other people, ended up starting my own company, got rid of that, and then started another company with my dad in Texas.
Oh, so you had already started one on your own before that. I thought you had started with your dad first.
No, the company in Texas was my second company that I owned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
man, I've been around, dude. I'm like the village whore.
I was going to say, you've done this a few times.
I don't want to do it again. That's, building a company is fun when you have the right people and you have capital and you have, all the things in place. But bootstrapping something from the ground up, dude, it is a ton of work, man. Ton of work.
It's something you have to build up, and then like it's hard starting over. I can imagine, because like you build it up, and then you have those relationships, that reputation, all that stuff.
Not to say that it won't happen again. I'm just not like actively seeking that or actively pursuing it. So.
I was gonna say, you can be one of those, like, I get those in my inbox all the time. We'll help your HVAC business grow and blah blah blah. I think I've as far as I've known of you or you yourself, I've only known you as HVAC Tactical. Like, when I first saw you, you already had. Well, how long ago did you start HVAC Tactical? It feels longer, but I don't think you've been doing it.
2018, so it's been just over 5 years.
Okay, yeah, you haven't. It's not like it's been like a crazy long time, but ever since I've known you, it's been HVAC Tactical, and that whole brand, you did really well with establishing it and getting it off the ground. Like, how did you come up with the brand itself, and then like the name and everything that went into it, like when you started?
Man, I wish I could sit here and be like, well, I really thought this through in one day. You know what I mean? Honestly, dude, everything I've ever done in my life has just been like shooting from the hip. It's just an idea that I had, and I just said, I'm just going to do it. Right. And what is it going to take to do it? I don't know. Let's just figure it out. Right. So you just start going, and you just figure it out as you go. I think if you sit around until you figure it out, you're never going to get anything done. Like, you just got to start. Right. And then as you do something, you'd be like, that didn't work very well. Let's try this. Right. Or you'd be like, man, that worked amazing. Like, let's do that again. Right. And that's how I started an HVAC company, and one sale led to another, and that one led to another. That one led to 4 more. Before you know it, we were crushing $1 million a year in 8 months. I mean, it was like, that was year 1 when I started my company, my very first company. And it was an incredible time. But I think there was no like real game plan. It was like just this idea of, what if we just made some really cool shirts and hats for guys who were out in the trade? Like, I want to wear cool shirts and hats, but I don't want to wear a Train hat or a Carrier hat or a Lennox hat.
Yeah.
Right. I want something different, or a Honeywell hat. Right. That's the oldest hat in the book, is a Honeywell hat. And then the name, I kept pondering, like, what would I call this thing? What would I call this thing? And I always just said that everything is a mindset, right? Being tactical is a mindset, and being tactical, like, is just, that's what I do every day. I mean, that's just my life. I pull out the end of my driveway and I'll say clear right, and my kid will look and she'll say clear right. Right. Like, it's just things that you just, these, like, just the method of how you live life. Right. Everything is just tactical. Yeah. Right. Just, and so I wanted to try to incorporate that into this whole mindset thing. And that's just kind of where it came from. And I don't really have an exact aha moment of like where it came from. It just kind of happened, man. And then the logo was, you know, I had a guy working on the logo for me, and he sent me a couple of revisions, and I was like, you know, take this and move it up here and chop this line off here. And then he did it. And I was like, that's it. Don't touch it. We're done. And when I saw it, I knew it. That was it. And we get a lot of compliments on the logo. In fact, a lot of people stealing the logo, using it for other things.
That was one of my questions too. Like, how often does that get copied?
It's annoying, dude. It really is. I mean, there's a guy in Canada who's got it on the side of his vehicle as his company name. There's another guy in like Australia that just straight up robbed the whole logo and changed the, I mean, it's crazy, dude. And there's only so much that I can do. You know what I mean? It's like, when I get something like that, I take a picture of it and I send it to my attorney, and I'm like, anything we can do? And he's like, don't, dude, just don't. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Not worth it.
No, the amount of money I'm going to have to spend to deal with it. And, you know, as the brand continues to grow, I think that it will be obvious that people bid it, right? And that you just stole somebody's stuff.
Did you start with hats and shirts then? Is that what you started off the brand with?
Started off with hats and shirts. Yep. Embroidered hats and screen print shirts, and the leather patch hats were the very first hats that we rolled out.
Oh, they were? Yeah. Didn't you hand make those?
Those were handmade, dude. Yeah. If you have an OG hat, that thing was handmade, dude. So handmade and hand stitched.
Dang. So. And did you ever get overwhelmed with that? Like at the beginning?
Oh my gosh, bro. Like looking back, it's laughable, dude. It's laughable looking back at how I would come home from a day's worth of work doing installs, service work, and I'd come in here and I would look at my Shopify thing and it would say, you have 4 orders, right? I'm like, well, hell yeah, dude, we sold 4 hats. This is awesome. Like, people want this, right? And then it was very much the same feeling when I would sell like a $30,000, $40,000 HVAC setup, right? It's like, walk out of the house and you're like, yes, nailed that thing. And then you're like, wait a minute, now I got to go install this. Like, I don't want to do that, you know? And it was very much the same way. Like, I was pumped that we sold some merch, but now I got to make these hats. And at that time, a hat took me 20 minutes to make from start to finish. And I basically had these little leather patches. I bought this big sheet. In fact, I still have a leather sheet hanging on my wall here just to remind me that that's where it started. And I took those. We would cut them to size. I'd take all those to a laser engraver. He would laser engrave the logo onto the leather. Then I would bring the leather back. I would stain the leather with like this like stain to make it dark, because it's light in color. You know, that's how natural leather is. And then I would punch the holes in it, and then I would glue it onto the hat, and then I would hand stitch the hat through the leather, which was hard. If you've ever hand stitched leather, it's tough work, dude. So that's some straight up cowboy stuff.
Hey, every hat was made with love, right?
I'm telling you, dude. But it was cool because we got to do like red stitching on the brown leather.
Oh, okay.
Like, yeah, if you have red stitching on a brown leather hat, that was a handmade hat. I would suggest you stop wearing it, clean it up, and stick it on a shelf, because it's going to be a relic. So maybe someday we'll make another version of that handmade. So
yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
So then, how quickly when did you realize that this was going to expand or take off a little bit? Like, did you have a nice start, a slow start, a quick start?
Dude, everything's been so organic, dude. It's just been slowly building and building and building and building. I remember going to the very first AHR in, I think it was Orlando. So at this point, not Chicago, but the next show for 2025, this will be like a full circuit for me, right? Where I've been to every AHR for one full circuit. I remember walking in and like having a hat on, and people will be like, HVAC Tactical, you know? And I'm like, who said that? Like, let me shake your hand. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, that was my moment of like, where I made it. Right. But, I mean, just kind of thinking back on that, dude, it was still super small. Just this, I mean, we're still super small, right? It's just this little organic thing that was just happening. It really wasn't until the show in Vegas that everything started to change. So, and it was,
I feel like a lot of things changed for everybody after that, and including, you know, what you were doing. A lot of people motivated, a lot of people like excited to show what they can do, right? And I feel like Vegas did that, then Atlanta amplified that, and I think we're gonna continue to see that, and that's part of that whole movement that you've been talking about, that is just been taking a life of its own.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see what the future holds for the brand. And I think 2024, I think this award show and AHR is just going to catapult what we got going on. I just signed a deal with NAVAC. I'm not sure if you knew about that. I don't think a lot of people do know about that. I've never like come out and said it. I've kind of made some social media posts about it, but so basically I'm, you know, representing the NAVAC brand. And they got some really cool stuff that's going to hit the streets soon. And, you know, just building these relationships with all these sponsors and these OEMs, and, you know, like I'm working with GE right now, and we have some pretty big plans for the future between the both of us. Yeah, I'm excited, man. I really am. I never expected any of this stuff. This just happened. And again, I'm just humbled that the industry has allowed me to be a voice for them, you know. Better for me to be a voice now than now that I'm, you know, 40 plus, as opposed to being a voice in my 20s, because I was kind of a knucklehead back then. The brand is cool. The industry is cool. What's cooler is the people, right? Like, I've made some incredible friendships and some just incredible relationships with people, and some people that I call in my inner circle, right? They're some of my best friends. Man, it's just great. You can't hope for this stuff. Like, it just happens, and it just unfolds, and it's just incredible, man. But it just goes to show you that there's just incredible people out in this industry who are doing the same thing you're doing every day, turning wrenches out there, just getting it, right? They're just genuine people, man. And you can make some incredible friendships, and that are going to last a lifetime. Even when you get out of the industry, they're still going to be your friends. So
yeah, we're in a good space now, because like I know like a few years ago might not have been as strong as it is now, but it's been getting better. Everybody has been positive, like you talk about friendships and whatnot, and a lot of these guys are also just willing to help, willing to share knowledge, teach. You know, there's a lot of great guys that are actually doing like content where it's like you can learn a lot, right? To name a few: Brian Orr, Ty Brenneman, you know, Craig Migliaccio. Great content, and these are all guys that post online, and you can reach out to them and they'll respond, or you see them at AHR, they're more than happy to talk to you. Like, it's a great community.
You know, like on the plumbing side of stuff, like I'm not a plumber, right? But I know enough about plumbing because I've been doing it for a long time. But I would not call myself a plumber. There's, you know, code stuff that I'm just not familiar with. And, you know, but when I have a question about plumbing, there's three guys that I'll call. I either call George the plumber, I call Eric Ani, or I'll call Angel, HVAC boss, right? Those are all three guys who know everything there is to know about plumbing. And if I have a plumbing question, I'm going to get a solid answer out of one of those guys. And so whether that be just through, hey, what size pipe do I need to do this? Or, you know, what do I do with this tankless water heater? Is this enough BTUs? Do I have to cascade them? Like, whatever the case may be, they got an answer for me, right? And there's other guys who, call me and they'll be like, hey, I got a question on HVAC stuff. Like, how do I do this? Or what do you think about this? And so everybody has somebody that they can reach out to, right? This is not Facebook, right? This is Instagram. We're all willing to help each other. So yeah, it's just been incredible, man. It's been an incredible ride, incredible journey. So just happy to be here, man. It's exciting.
Yeah, just don't be afraid to reach out to anybody. And even when I didn't have any followers or anything like that, I reached out to a lot of these big accounts, Chris Stevens and whatnot, and right away give me a great answer or something helpful that helped me at work, right? Because I was always asking like work related stuff. And it's just grown. And I always tell people, because I've had so many that come up to me and they're like, should I start posting? Should I do this? I'm like, just do it, right? Like, we need more content. I've heard you say the same thing. We need more HVAC content. For one, I want it to be more known. I want it to be, the younger generation can see it. And like you said, see that it's cool, see the stuff that we get to do off of work, whether that's, hanging out, getting awards, doing these conventions and whatever it is. But just post, because we need more content. And I have a YouTube channel. I do content myself and stuff, but I don't do the same work that everybody else does, right? So then I'll go and watch somebody who does other kind of work in my field that I'm not good at or I'm not familiar with, right? Down here in Texas, we don't get a lot of no heat calls, but I'll go and watch a ton of that just to brush up on it. And there might be weaknesses that I have, and I'll go and watch that kind of content. So like, and I tell people, whether you're doing like maintenance, filters, whatever it is, just post it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's no secret, like, I don't spend a lot of time in the field anymore. Kind of because I don't want to, right?
But
like,
you
I'm
still have your own,
your
own business, right?
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't?
No, I left my company back in January. So I've been gone for almost a year. So, that's a long story. That's a whole nother podcast.
I was going to say, a lot of my talking points, like each one of them could probably be an episode. I'm trying not to keep you too long on anything, but
you're good, dude.
But you do some work in the field, right?
I do. Yeah.
You still stay in it?
Yeah. I mean, I get out there and I get it done, but I got, I call him my apprentice, but really it's, he's become more of like a life apprentice. I've just kind of become more of a mentor to him at this point. But Efren, I'm sure you know who Efren is. Everybody knows who Efren is. But I've basically, brought him into the industry, taught him a bunch of stuff, sent him to a bunch of training. But to be fair, he's taken his education, under his own control, and he just ran with it. He just has a desire just to be great at what he's doing, and you just can't teach that. And so he's just, kind of rolls with me. And if I get something that needs to be done, I'll send him to go take care of it. And, we'll work through a buddy's license so that way we can stay legal and stuff like that. But yeah, I go back and forth, man, or whether just to go start another company, but I'm just like,
well, you got a lot going on. You're trying to be, or you have HVAC Tactical that you can do full time, right? Like that's kind of a full-time job in its own, because you have so many things going on with that brand, and you get to do HVAC on the side now.
Yeah. So, it's my side girl. I do have a couple buddies who are like, "Do we need to start a business?" And I'm like,
Yeah, man. It's because we always need good techs. We have that issue down here too. It's like, there's not a lot of good companies out there, and there's work everywhere. So I can imagine.
Yeah, I think my ultimate objective is to change the industry, right, for the better. And it's hard to do that if I go start an HVAC company, right? Like I'm making a dent in my market, right? Where I'm trying to do this for the entire industry. So I have some other things that I'm working on with some other people that will be industry changing. And, believe me, when it happens, you're going to know about it. So
a lot of behind the scenes stuff you got going on. So that's good. And as far as the award show, So for anybody that's wondering about that, it was online only first when you gave out the very first awards, right? It was just an idea you had, and you kind of just announced that out like on Instagram,
Yep, 3
and that's how
awards.
it started. That was only 3.
Yeah, 3 awards.
I remember you posting about that, and then Vegas was the first in person, right?
Yep. Yeah, we sold out of tickets for that show in 24 hours, to less than 24 hours.
Yeah, and then we had the one in Atlanta that I went to that was amazing. So in that short time, you kind of built up a pretty great show, and I know I heard you say you're trying to replicate that for Chicago. You're
Correct.
pretty
Yep.
I can imagine how, like, are you the one that's like out there, like you said you don't enjoy it? Are you running out there making sure everything's done right and trying to, you know, control the chaos of running the show?
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, fortunately I have a like a show manager. She kind of manages all the live stream and the cameras and the audio and like all of this stuff, right? But I have like the order or of the show, right? They call it a run of show. So I have basically this agenda for the show where like this video needs to be playing at this particular moment in time. This audio needs to go at this particular moment in time because it's announcing XYZ to come onto stage for this award, right? So it's like everything is like click, 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 click. It all has to be done on time. It all has to be on point, dude. It's a production, right? It's a show. And I'm the one who puts this whole thing together. So now I have to turn around and get my show manager and be like, this is how it's done. So I have to write all of this stuff out. So in an easy to understand like agenda. So that way she doesn't miss anything. But yeah, like this year, everything's on teleprompters. So people on stage are going to be able to see this teleprompter in front of them with the words. And I mean, it's, again, just trying to level up and just be better, right? So,
And it doesn't, and you don't cut corners just like with anything else that you do, but I can imagine that these are not cheap events either. I mean, this is stuff that you're putting on essentially just for everybody to get recognition, like you said, and have a good time. This stuff costs money. That's why you have, like, I know we talked about it earlier, the sponsorships and whatnot, but these things are not cheap.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't have a problem. I'm a transparent guy, dude. I don't have a problem sharing stuff. To put on the show, this show is going to cost about $150,000.
$150,000.
Yep.
For essentially what like, I mean, some people might be like looking at this and be like, oh, it's just a outlandish party that they're throwing. Like, no, this is a legit show.
When you cater, okay, so let me put it to you in perspective here. The venue, right, with the meal and the drinks, right? We're not doing tickets this year. It's an open bar. So so you don't have to buy any drinks. Everything's just provided. It costs about $300 per person for us to pay for one person to sit down at a table, eat and drink for the night. $300. So, and if you remember when you bought your ticket, how much was your ticket?
Which time? Last time?
The very first one, because when we started selling out of tickets, we pushed the price up.
Yeah, was it like 50?
It was $99 for Chicago.
Oh, for Chicago. I was talking about before. Yeah. Like, you had obviously upped it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's $99 for a ticket, but it costs us $300 per person to sit down. And you might think like, that's ridiculous, $300. I 100% agree. It is ridiculous, right? But this is what it costs to do it. It's not like we just went with the first guy who gave us a price. Like, we had multiple bids for this thing, right? So the show, the venue itself, the dinner, the drinks, the venue, the rental of whatever goes on and all that stuff, that was about $105,000 to about $110,000. Okay. The audio video, right, is another $20,000. And then like another, nothing, it was another $15,000 for the live stream, which is pretty normal. That's what it cost us in Las Vegas. And that was 2-3 years ago. Right. So,
yeah.
Yeah, and you start to think it costs you 15 grand to live stream. Like I could do that from a cell phone and go straight to YouTube. 1,000% you could, but you're not going to get multiple camera angles, and you're not going to get the quality that you're looking for, you know, and you're not going to get the audio mixed into all that stuff. And I mean, is there cheaper ways to do it? Yeah. If I was sitting there doing it myself, but I'm not, I have to pay other people to do it. Right. So yeah, all in all, it's about 150 grand to put this show on. And we have some super generous sponsors, you know, Supco Trade Fox, Vega, RLS, Webstone, GE. GE bought out the entire after party because we're also doing after party, an official after party after the show, right? So you don't have to leave the venue. You just walk back to where we did cocktail hour. And now there's a DJ there. We got a dance floor, all this other stuff. So yeah, I mean, it is an elaborate party for sure. But it's a night, man, that we're just really just recognizing people in the industry for being great at what they do and giving guys who are just blue collar dudes who are in the trenches, giving them an opportunity to really just get dressed up, meet new people, network with each other, build relationships. But we're also giving these sponsors an opportunity to throw them in the room, right? And get them an opportunity to network with all the influencers and guys on social media, right? And like, hey, Adrian, how can we work together? You know what I mean? And like, so, you know, it's interesting. I never expected any of this. Believe me, when I saw the cost of what it takes to do this, I was like, you're freaking shitting me. There's no way that it costs that much. Like these people are ripping us off, right? But these are companies that they do this stuff professionally for a living. And, you know,
yeah, and
I would never pay 20 grand for an air conditioner. Right?
I know
do it all the time.
That's a whole mindset with us because we can do everything ourselves and we don't want to pay for stuff like that. But 100%. There are times when you need to outsource that stuff. And no, man, like the Atlanta one, like I went to the last one. It was great. Very fun. And the whole networking thing is a really cool aspect of it. Like you said, you get to mix in not only the techs or the content creators, but also all these companies. And that's a cool thing too, is all these companies that actually back up like what you do. Like they're actually there to support the movement, the techs that are nominated or that are there just attending, right? They get to talk to everybody essentially. And if you do put, you know, your best foot forward in the work that you do and you want to be there, this whole thing is based off nominations, right? I mean, it's not a popularity contest. It's just, you know, you have to be nominated by somebody, and that's all it takes.
Yeah, so we had to create a small committee to basically manage this, because if we didn't, then it very much would be a popularity contest. And so we try to keep the awards in the community, right? So we do get people who are nominated who, like, I don't know who they are. Nobody else has ever heard of them because they're just some random person, right? That may not even have a social media account. And, and it's how are we supposed to know anything about you or how genuine you are or how great work you do if nobody knows anything about you, right? So it's like, in order to be part of the awards, like you got to be part of the community, right? It's like trying to win an Oscar, but you're making backyard movies with a homemade camera. Like how are you going to do that, right? Like you got to be part of that community. And so, so it's no different. And basically what ends up happening is once you get nominated, we throw you into this pool of people, and then we look at all these people and we comb through them, and then we say, okay, out of these, 10 people or however many, I would say, where's the top 3, right? So then we said, okay, well, these are the top 3 that we think would be for this particular category. And then we put them aside and we go to the next category. We kind of get it all figured out. And dude, it's hard, man, because I
can imagine.
It's really hard. And dude, I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't, dude. You know what I mean? Like no matter the decision I make, no matter how right it is, no matter how wrong it is, I'm going to hear about it from somebody about how I made the wrong decision. Right. Fortunately, it's not just me making the decision, right? We got a small committee. One thing I want to do next year is create a larger committee. I want to have more people on it. But what people don't realize is that in order to be on that committee, you are ineligible to win. So you can't be on the committee and win an award. If you're on that committee, you are already a winner. Like you're capable of winning, right? So I don't want some random person who's just like does really crappy work to be on the committee, right? Like I need top tier dudes. So, and what a lot of people don't know is that both Mike Flynn and Jeff J. Dem are both on the committee. So it's the three of us that we sit down and we hammer out all this stuff. And people nominate Mike and Jeff all the time, right? And there's nothing I can do about that. It gets one of those things where it just gets tossed aside because they're just not going to win an award. So, and they're both of them are totally okay with that. So it's because they look at this whole thing as this is bigger than we are, dude. Right? Like give the award to somebody else. We don't need an award. We don't need you to tell us how good we are, you know? And
because the whole thing with the awards is, and I believe the same thing. Like it should be somebody that could use the recognition, right? Somebody who could use that, because a lot of those awards are essentially like little stepping platforms for people that might not get the recognition they deserve sometimes, right?
Well, the Hidden Gem Award is that's a
good
perfect
one.
example of that, right? These are guys who are doing incredible work, but nobody knows who they are, right? They got a couple hundred followers, maybe like 500 followers or something like that, when they should have like 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. Like if you look back at Jeffy Pipes, right?
Oh yeah.
Dude, he had nobody for followers, right? And he won this award, and all of a sudden it's like clink, 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 just starts showing up, right? Like now everybody knows who Jeffy Pipes is. And it was just one of those things.
He was posting a lot, and then like he started getting little opportunities here and there, just being an HVAC Tactical Award winner. Like that sometimes could open doors too.
Yeah, I mean, and that's humbling in itself, right? But like if you look at Gil, Gil's like, hey man, I'm looking for sponsors. And they're like, well, hey, now that you won that award, like are your prices going to go up? And it's like, it's just funny, man. But I mean, it's cool. I guess I kind of look at it as like, because I'm behind the scenes and I see everything, right? I don't see it at the level that everybody else does, right? But if I was on the outside, I would be I would be gunning for an award, dude, because that's just who I am. I'm very competitive by nature, Yeah,
man.
So, yeah, if somebody else came out with an award for whatever, I'd be like, dude, I'm taking that home, dude, and I'm gonna do what I got to do to make it happen. So,
and that's how a lot of people are right now, because, like I said, after every award show in AHR, people get motivated, and you see a lot of more content, and they're gunning for next year.
Yeah. And I love it, dude. Like coming out of Atlanta, you saw the content just rise, man, and I love it. So it forces people to level up and, but how consistent can you stay? Or was that just a 1 month gig? You know what I mean? So, but yeah, man, I'm excited to see what happens. And, this is a whole lot of work, but, I think it's worth it, man. It's worth it to see the impact that it makes on the industry and how positive of an impact it makes, and how to get people to think bigger about themselves, right? To get people to say, man, you know what? I truly want to, I was getting burned out, but now that fire's reignited. Like I got that passion back, and man, I want to hit this, and I want to hit it hard. It's kind of like when you go to a training and then you leave there and you come back and you're like, man, let's do this, And I feel like that's what AHR is, and that's what the award show is, and it just reignites that fire for a lot of people.
All right, man. Well, you kind of summed that up really well. We're at an hour and a half. I don't want to keep you too long. But yeah, great stuff. Hearing about you growing up in the trades. I had, like I said, heard bits and pieces. It was cool to hear more of your story, and then the whole HVAC Tactical brand, from clothing to award show to magazine, and I'm sure there's plenty more that we can look forward to. Hopefully 2024 is a big year for you, man. And I appreciate you for coming on the show.
I appreciate you having me, man. You ain't seen nothing yet.
So. I can't wait, man. So everybody watching and listening, I will see you guys later.